Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of Midweek Maranatha, our midweek prophecy update. And I'm glad to having everyone joining along with us today. I see that we haven't even started the program. Well, we just started it right now, and we've already got a question in there. Pookie's trying to hurry up and get his question in, so that's hilarious. That's hilarious. We will be taking questions and answers, doing Q&A, I should say, and any statements that you all have as well. Interested in those statements and observations that you all have. Keep it all nice, kind, loving, and Christ honoring, though, what we always ask. And today we're going to be talking about devil in the details, and who better to have on than a lawyer. I couldn't resist, John, a lawyer and pastor and friend, John Holler. Everyone, welcome, John Holler. How you doing, John?
I'm doing good. I resemble that remark, as they say.
You sure do. You sure do. Oh, man, I couldn't resist. Sorry. All right, devil in the details today. Wow, so how has everything been going with you?
I've been going pretty good. It's cold and gray, and uh, the other day around Thanksgiving we had a nice snow, that put white outlines on all the trees and everything. And I said, fine, it looks pretty. I'm over it. Bring on spring.
You talk about spring. The temperature yesterday and today is 72, 73 degrees here in Las Vegas.
Well, I was going to say it was over 60 here. It was 30 yesterday and 32 today, if you add them together.
If you add them together. Wow. Wow. Well, I hope everyone's doing great on the chat this, almost said morning, this afternoon. Well, let's get right on into it here today. So why don't we start talking about what's on your heart this afternoon? I think there's some things going on in Qatar. What do you think?
I think there's a lot going on in Qatar.
Yeah.
And of course, they had the big forum there last weekend, the Doha Forum, which was a propaganda operation for the Muslim Brotherhood. They invited a few people that might have slightly dissenting views, but they brought in their big guns. Their big gun, Tucker Carlson, came. Mr. America First, who came to Qatar and said, "I'm an American. I can do whatever I want. And I'm going to buy a house in Qatar."
I've got to say something here. You know what's really interesting? Jeremy, can you turn John up for me, please? You know what I think is interesting is that Mr. America First, Tucker Carlson, who's buying their, I'm sure, a pretty plush little place there in Qatar, calls himself a Christian, and yet they come against the Christian churches there in Qatar.
Right.
He doesn't want to talk about that.
No, well, wait a minute.
What's that?
I don't know if they come against any Christian churches in Qatar, because I don't think there are any.
Well, what do you think? Exactly. So, but that is the subject of is not the subject of conversation for Tucker. Instead, Israel, Zion, Zionists, all of that is the topic of conversation with him. They speak. Guys like him, they speak out of both sides of their mouths. He is a seasoned journalist. He's a seasoned journalist. Let's remember that.
Look, I have to believe. So when you see a group of people all of a sudden saying the same thing across different platforms in media, social media, post on X, post on Facebook, and everything is the same, I think that's a very high indicator that this is a psychological operation to deceive you. And the one thing I'm amazed about Tucker, I mean, look, I'm a busy guy. I do a lot of research, and it takes a while to put together the things that I do each week. Tucker's coming out with like 3 or 4 hours of stuff every day. Now, he can have a staff help him prepare, but just the logistics of getting all those people, to do interviews at different times of the day is pretty amazing. And then he's traveling to Qatar and he's doing all these interviews. There's something very weird going on here. This is a massive propaganda operation that he's engaged in, and it's all the same themes, and it's all done in the same techniques. For example, when he has Ted Cruz on, he doesn't like Ted Cruz because Ted, I think, supported the war in Iraq, under the Bush administration. He is pro-Israel. He claims to be, he says he's a Christian Zionist. And so when he's on, Tucker is just absolutely relentless in attacking him. But when he has on somebody like Munther Isaac,
softballs it there.
It's all softballs. Oh,
right.
You're such a wonderful, poor, oppressed person. And then he has on that nun.
The one with the mustache.
Yeah, by the way, when I was in Jerusalem recently at Christ Church, she was like outside on the street because we got a video shot of her. But wait a minute, she's not Palestinian, she's Greek, she's George Stephanopoulos' sister, but she went to religious school in Russia, so you can imagine the orientation that she got up there. But, so Tucker acts like every Palestinian Arab within Israel borders is oppressed. And that's not the case. They own businesses, they own restaurants. Right. One of my favorite restaurants in Jerusalem is an Arab-owned restaurant just off Jaffa Street. They own homes, they vote, they serve in the IDF, they serve in the Knesset, they serve in the judiciary. Now, look, the people that live in the areas of Judea and Samaria called the West Bank, Palestinian, it would be Area A, because every time you go into Area A, there's a big red sign that says Israeli citizens aren't allowed to come into this area. And that's for a reason, because they may get kidnapped, and then there's going to be a war to get them free. So they're not oppressed. So now today, the latest Tucker operation in Qatar was he went to visit Palestinians who were allowed, 2,000 Palestinians who were allowed to leave Gaza. And it's such a shame because the U.S. and Israel won't let any more leave than that. That's a bold-faced lie. Qatar brought in a few, 100 or a couple thousand Palestinians because they wanted to use them as a propaganda operation. It's the only reason they came. And Tucker's there. They're so oppressed. It's so bad what's happened to them. And then yesterday we see massive amounts of baby formula that have been hidden by Hamas from distribution.
Right, but Israel gets blamed. Israel gets blamed.
Listen, this is one of the most incredible psyops I've ever seen, this whole Gaza thing. It's not a genocide under any definition of the term.
Right.
But they were calling it a genocide before Israel even went in to deal with the situation. You remember, they didn't go in that day. It was like 3-4 weeks before they started entering into Gaza. But before then, the whole genocide narrative had come about. And I talked to a lot of people when I was in Israel in October and November. One of the things that's pretty apparent, pretty sure this is the case, I'm not going to dispute that a lot of people have been killed. That's not the issue. It's a war, and this is what happens in a war.
It's not a war that Israel asked for either.
I was doing some research on births in Gaza. In the 18 months after October 7, 2023, how many babies do you think, and I'm pretty sure I got this at a UN website, how many babies were born in Gaza? Any guess?
Not even remotely.
50,000. this is the most ineffective genocide in human history, if that's what it
Well,
is.
yeah, if Israel is committing a genocide, which exactly what you said, it doesn't fit the definition of a genocide, first of all. But hey, who likes facts, right? We just like assumptions and conspiracy theories and throwing everybody under the bus, that you can name it. And then you got conspiracy Candace out there. That's another one that adds into the mix of all of this too. And where's the facts? Where's the evidence? Or like I said on one of the programs that I did here recently, where's the beef? Remember the commercial? Where's the beef? Well, I want to say, where's the facts? Where's the facts? But facts don't matter. You see, all you have to do is take a lie and wrap it up in. I'm just asking questions. I'm just
Right.
asking questions.
By the way, that was a Wendy's commercial. Where's the beef?
Yes, yes,
And
it was.
we used to live right around the corner from where the Wendy's headquarters was. So
Let me ask you. Let me ask you this. Let's talk about what's going on there with this Doha conference.
So again, it was this massive propaganda operation. So there were a number of people that were brought in. Tucker was brought in to interview the prime minister of Qatar. I can't remember the guy's name. And it was a bunch of softball questions. For example, one of the things that Tucker said, ask him questions about the Israeli attack in September on Doha. If you remember, they were in the midst of negotiating a ceasefire or some kind of agreement in Gaza. The Hamas leaders, which are never going to enter into an agreement. How many decades of experience do we need with Hamas to understand that everything they say is a bold-faced lie and they never reach an agreement? Nevertheless, Qatar put out, they're negotiating and they have their negotiating team there. And so Israel sent some missiles in. And by the way, it was a very interesting, very different kind of operation. There was a big article in the Wall Street Journal about how Israel conducted that operation, because between Israel and Qatar is Saudi Arabia. And Israel doesn't want to fly over Saudi Arabia because of the talks that are ongoing to get Saudis to enter into some kind of normalization agreement with Israel. So they did a thing where they went up over the Red Sea in international airspace, as far as I can tell, and air-launched ballistic missiles that flew above everything and came down into Doha. It was really, I think it's the first country who's ever done an attack like this anywhere. And it was kind of a stunner. And so the Qatari prime minister was, this was just terrible. They're just negotiators there. They're terrorists. You're keeping, you're harboring those terrorists. You're letting Hania lived there before he was assassinated a little over a year ago in Tehran. He lived there and he was a multi-billionaire, probably worth somewhere between $3 and $5 billion. That he had all stolen money. The guy never produced anything. He never started a company. He just learned how to steal money like any good mafioso would. So they took out the attack was not successful, because the leadership that they really wanted to get had left the room, but left their phones in the room. And they went someplace else to pray. So they attacked the room. So there were a number of people killed, and there might have been one or two Qataris killed as well. But the Qatari prime minister was like, and then Tucker goes, well, then President Trump intervened and he got Netanyahu on the phone, and he made first time a U.S. president has ever intervened on behalf of an Arab country against Israel. Kurt, that's just a bold-faced lie. We've always had trouble with presidents taking the sides of Arabs against Israel. Harry Truman did it. Nixon had to override a lot of his advisors to support Israel in the 1973 Yom Kippur War. So what Tucker said was just a complete lie. And then the Qatari prime minister, oh yes, it was just terrible. We were just trying to make peace, just trying to negotiate peace. Listen, Qatar doesn't want peace. Qatar wants Israel destroyed. They're Muslim Brotherhood. That's a basic Islamic doctrine. So what was done was they propped up this Muslim Brotherhood country, extremely wealthy. They're 300,000 people. Okay, 300,000 ethnic Qataris. They control a vast amount of wealth, the largest natural gas field in the world that they share with Iran. They bring in a lot of money. They've given billions to American think tanks and universities, and they've gotten a lot of bang for their buck. Look at how our universities responded to the attacks of October 7th. It immediately became Israel's fault. So that was one part of the propaganda operation that took place at the Doha Forum. And the interesting thing is the Qataris bring in people to do their menial tasks, and these people live in essentially as modern day slaves in Qatar. And then Tucker goes to Qatar to talk about the oppressed Palestinian people. It's everything is upside down and inverted.
It is upside down and inverted, and I mean, it should. You would think that it would be obvious to everyone around. You know, I've been teaching. I finally completed this kind of series, if you would, as I'm teaching through the book of Romans on Sunday mornings. I spent many weeks teaching through Romans 9, 10, and 11. I just finished Romans 11. It took us 3 weeks doing Romans 11. I think we did Romans 10 in 1 week, and I think it was a good 3 weeks, probably even longer than that.
Did you get your marching orders from Israel to do that? I mean, aren't you Calvary Chapel guys part of a Zionist military psychological operation that's controlled by the Israeli government and military?
Well, I'm under a code of secrecy.
Okay.
And so, you know, I really can't talk about any of those things publicly, let alone privately, about some of the funding and connections that I may or may not have with the U.S. government as a Calvary Chapel pastor slash CIA plant to infiltrate the Christian community.
This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about it. A lot of people are talking about it. Just, I mean, the more ridiculous the statement, the more that people believe it. And yet I say this, hey, if you're going to say a statement, back it up with proof. 100%, that can't be backed up with proof, by the way. Zero proof, zero evidence in that whatsoever. In fact, my pastor, who's on the board there of Calvary Chapel Association, Pastor David Rosales, very kindly, nicely, extremely graciously addressed this situation days ago. He got saved in 1970. Was a whole part of that Jesus People movement at the time. And anyhow, people ought to watch it. It's really good. He handled it very well. He really did. You know, the lies out there are just outrageous. In fact, I just played a video clip. Let me see, when was this? This was Sunday night. I think it was from the Israel guys, and it was just a short little clip within a larger video of theirs showing a 50-person extravagant wedding right there in Gaza that just took place. 50 couples got married. People as far as the eye could see. I mean the women were you know, what do they say, dressed to the nines, the guys, everything, the music, the gigantic screen that was on the stage there that looks like something that we have in these big stage presentations on the Las Vegas Strip. And, you know, people have no idea the lies that they are believing out there that are coming from some of these people. It just blows my mind. Blows my mind. So
they have nicer cell phones down there than we do. No, sir. I mean, really? You know, the number of like Apple iPhones, new Apple iPhones in Gaza are amazing. And look, there's destruction there. It's
Of course, there's
ridiculous not
destruction.
to.
Yeah, there's tons of destruction there, and there's a number of dead people too. Yes,
Right,
and that is
and
a
there's a
sad
kind
and
of
unfortunate thing that happens in war.
it's a good rule of thumb. If you don't want that to happen, don't start a war.
There you go.
I mean, how many years did Israel put up with these rocket attacks that they had? I mean, I was just twice on my trips over there in the last 6 weeks. I was down at Nova twice, the Nova Music Festival site where 364 people were killed. In the field there, and and along the roads where you saw all the terrorist shootings taking place and that type of thing, attacks on cars, all along the road there are bomb shelters. And those didn't come up after October 7th, 2023. They had existed for a very long time before that because Gaza, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad would shoot rockets into Israel all the time. And so when I was there a few years ago, we went to Niram, which was probably the closest kibbutz to the Gaza border, physically about a half mile from the Gaza border. And the lady that's one of the ladies that spoke to us, she said, "I love this place. It's 95% heaven and 5% hell, because when the rockets start flying, I have 10 seconds to get into a shelter. 10 seconds.
Right, right.
And so they took us out by the fence. There's a garden area there. It's an agricultural commune, is what it is. And then they have fields outside the fence around the kibbutz. And then the Gaza border fence is about a half mile away. But there's a memorial there to people who didn't make it to a shelter. A rocket hit 3 guys. 2 of them were killed, and 1 lost both of his legs. And we met him later that same day. He's the mayor of the regional council in that area down there now. And he talked about what happened that day, got hit by this rocket. But so there were these bomb shelters everywhere, and Hamas knew where they were because 18,000 Palestinian workers came across the border almost every day to work in Israel. They weren't locked into a concentration camp. They came to Israel to work, and they mapped out the areas. And so Hamas knew exactly where all these bomb shelters were. They knew people would be in there. They knew where the locked door handle would be. And they attacked these bomb shelters. And you go through the Nova site and the kibbutzim that were attacked on October 7th, and you'll see how they shot off the doors. They threw grenades in. And in some places at Nova, 24 people died in one bomb shelter. A bunch of people lived, but they were stacked up, 5, 6 deep on top of each other. So all the people on top died. It's kind of hard to imagine the scope of it until you actually stand there. But there are these bomb shelters all over the place. Like in the parking lot of a strip center, there's a bomb shelter because they got rockets shot at them all the time. And so Israel would go in every few years. They would have the rockets come, then Israel would go in and do an operation. People like Carolyn Glick called it mowing the lawn in Gaza. You got to, every now and then you got to mow the lawn, keep it at the right height. But eventually they were able to do this attack, and they were ready. They had done very large operational plans. At one kibbutz, Kurt, that I was at near Oz, there were a couple hundred people, a little over 200 people that lived at that kibbutz. Half of them were taken hostage or killed that day.
Innocent civilians.
Yeah,
innocent civilians who were not enemy combatants.
They were not. Well, you're talking about the Israelis, right?
Yes. This is an important point to note. They were of no active threat. They were in their own land. They were not military forces that Gaza was battling, and not in that spot right there. All right. And let's also understand, just a slight correction, you had said, and I know what you're talking about, you had said when Hamas came in and attacked, it was Hamas and the Palestinians, both. It was not... And I know that you know that. It was Hamas and the Palestinians both that had done that. And by the way, when you're talking about these bomb shelters and these rocket attacks, most people don't even know that the largest rocket attack anywhere on planet Earth in history happened on October 7th against Israel. Let's understand
6,500
that.
rockets.
What's that?
6,500 rockets.
6,500 rockets. Largest rocket attack in history.
Human history.
Yeah, right. People do not understand the depth, the length, the scope of everything that has taken place and that is involved here. They just open their mouths and they don't know what they're talking about. They have conspiracies for they got a problem. My wife says this all the time. Some people just have a problem for every answer. They have a problem for every solution.
So at Near Oz, the gentleman who led us around on our tour of the kibbutz, this was in early November, was the head of security there. He said, I have very vivid memory of what he said. We were not attacked by Hamas on October 7th. We were attacked by Gazans.
Correct.
That weren't in Hamas. And they were prepared. They knew exactly what rooms would be locked. We went to the home of the Beavis family. They knew which people had guns. They knew people who would be able to defend themselves. And so it was regular Gazans that came to Near Oz. Hamas came elsewhere, and it's kind of hard to envision the scope, but understand that the people who lived in those kibbutzim along the border were and I'm not saying this is in a derogatory way, but I'm just trying to put it in terms that Americans can understand. Those people were the hippies, the peace-loving hippies that thought that they could make peace with the Palestinians. So when I was walking around Near Oz, I noticed something up. I was by the fence around the kibbutz on the Gaza side. So it would be on the west side of the kibbutz. And you can see Gaza. You can hear explosions across the way. And the border fence of Gaza, you can see it a half mile away. But on top of the one building there was a road sign. And of course, in Israel, the road sign is a little bit different here, but it's essentially a white sign with an arrow pointing towards the name of the place. And the name of the place on the road sign pointing towards Gaza was called Gush Katif. What was Gush Katif? Gush Katif was a Jewish settlement in Gaza in 2005 when the Bush-Cheney administration pressured Ariel Sharon, the prime minister at the time, evacuate Gaza and we'll be able to make peace with the Palestinians. And so what they did in 2005 was they took every Jew living and dead. Yes. They dug up the dead and took them out of Gaza. They made Gaza Jew-free. They made it a pure Palestinian Arab state. And what was the result of that? And so I had a chance to talk to the people on the bus we went down on, and I said, everything you need to know about what happened or what led up to October 7th was in that sign on the building Gush Katif. And I was talking to one of the first responders, and I'm a lawyer, so sometimes I actually try to couch my things in diplomatic language. And I said, if Gush Katif still existed in Gaza, in other words, if there were still Jews living in Gaza, maybe October 7th doesn't happen. And the guy stopped me. By the way, he was the first responder at Nova on October 7th. And what he will tell you he saw, you cannot even begin to describe. But he said, no, John, you're wrong. It's not that it might not have happened. It would not have happened if there were still Jews in Gaza. And by the way, so after I made that statement to some people when we were still in the kibbutz, I was telling some people that that's a very important sign. Some of the young people that work for the Israeli government that were in the group with us, they came over to me and said, "Here, come here, we want to show you something." So they took me into the common area of the kibbutz, and there's a mailbox. It's a commune, so there's a mail. Everybody's got a mailbox there, and all across the mailboxes, there's a red sign that says "murdered," kidnapped. You know, so there were, I forget how many people at Near Oz. There are at least 100 stickers on these mailboxes, and they said, "But look at this," and they pointed to some pictures of people that lived at Near Oz, and they said, "You see that man right there?" Yes. They said he was the most pro peace with Palestinian, make peace with the Palestinians at any cost guy that lived here, a half mile from the border. He had family members killed on October 7th. They said he put the sign up there. He was the one who put that sign you saw up there because he put it up there to irritate all the Zionists that said we should never have left Gaza. And so that was his way of sort of, for lack of a better term, giving the middle finger to all the people who thought that there should still be Jews living in Gaza. And how did that work out for him?
Mm-hmm. Right.
It was kind of ironic. It really kind of fleshed out the story of what I observed about how significant that sign was. But then it's even more significant when you consider it was this peacenik who thought they could make peace with the Gazans, who put it up there as a statement against the Zionists.
Well, here's the reality of these things is that Israel has tried to give land for peace. Yes, there has been some strings attached. I will say that. There has been some strings attached, but they have, but again, being the history of how things have been in that area and with the people there, I think that we can reasonably understand that. But they were moving in that direction. They were giving, they were giving land for peace. They were trying to have peace with these people that you can't have peace with. All right, let's face it. Now, that was their sin. It was their mistake. It was their error. And it was also their sin because they never should have done it to begin with. Nonetheless, that is the very thing that they did. And the people in Gaza took advantage of it. They took advantage of the naivety of the Jews, of the Israeli government, of Netanyahu. They took advantage of it, and we see what happened. The reality is that the people in Gaza, they do not want peace with Israel. They want Israel in pieces. That's the reality.
Yeah, it's and remember what happened within a very short time after we forced Israel to take every Jew living and dead out of Gaza. We had Katrina within 48 hours. Hurricane Katrina, one of the most damaging storms we've ever had in the United States.
That's just a coincidence.
It's interesting. Of course, Bill Koenig, and
yes.
Bill's been talking about this for a long time. But back about I think it was 2011, I was in Israel. I got down to it was very busy in those days, and it took us over 3.5 hours to get from the time we walked off the bus until we were down where we could sit down. It was grueling, and I had very bad knees at the time, and I was about ready to pass out. So I sat down, and I mentioned a column by Dave Barry. He was a humor columnist back in the day, and this Orthodox Jewish guy. He's got the kippah on and everything. He hands me his computer. He goes, "Oh yeah, read this My sister sent me this article that Dave Barry wrote about his colonoscopy. And then we went from there to Gaza and everything. And he said, you Americans, you need to understand that when you do things like what happened in Gaza in 2005, where you made us evacuate Gaza and you had that bad storm, that's biblical. That's a fulfillment of a biblical thing in Genesis. That's what he said. This is Orthodox Jews telling me this. He said, you Christians need to tell people about this because there are consequences to doing this. I didn't need Bill Koenig there with his book,
Right.
eye to eye, to do that. No, this guy, this Orthodox Jew, was telling me this in the airport, at Ben Gurion Airport. Our flight ended up getting delayed, so we were able to sit there and talk for about 4 hours. Very interesting conversation.
Wow.
It was the brother, by the way, of a guy named Itamar Marcus, who is the founder and head of an organization called Palestinian Media Watch, palwatch.org. You should follow that website because what they do is they translate, because what the Palestinians say in their media to their people in Arabic
Right.
is different than what they say in English to us. And sometimes the translations that they provide don't match up to what the actual translation is. This happens some at the Doha Forum, by the way. I'm pretty sure the Prime Minister of Qatar, in one of the videos I saw, was talking about the Zionists, but you won't find that anywhere in the transcript.
Well, of course not.
Of his interview with Tucker Carlson.
Because it's all deception. It's all deception. And
it is.
we've got to wise up to this. By the way, I just want to say really quick hi to Caterlin. Blessings back to you on there, Caterlin. Cy Blessed, hello back to you. Kelly Schultz is saying blessings from Colorado. I'm saying blessings from sunny, warm, 72 degrees Las Vegas. Back to you. And we've got Lindy B66. Blessings to both of us on here. Blessings to all you guys today. Hope you all are having a good afternoon so far. I just wanted to kind of give a shout out there to a few of you that I noticed on there. So let's talk about this here for a few minutes before we get into people's questions and statements. That's open up to whatever y'all want to talk about, whether you want to talk about the subject of Israel, conspiracy Candace, or whatever you want to talk about out there, or my connections with the CIA deep state, and that I'm a military plant. Here, if you want to talk about that, we'll talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. But I can't resist. Okay,
well,
but
yeah. So there are a couple points to make if you're ready to go back to it about the Doha Forum. So
I do.
We had the Tucker thing.
I do.
And since then, Tucker's been, like, well, I'm an American. I can go anywhere I want. I can say anything I want. I can buy a house anywhere I want. Okay, Tucker, that's fine. I accept that, okay? And I'm not telling people to censor you or anything, but I am saying people should use discretion in following in analyzing, listening to you, and we're allowed to critique you. That's not silencing you. That's critiquing you. That's all part of this thing. But I would say this, if I want to go to Israel, if I want to support Israel, if I want to buy a house in Israel, if I want to lead a tour to Israel, that's my business, Tucker. I'm an American. I'm free to make that choice. And what you do is you turn it into a complete ad hominem attack that if you support Israel, you are heretic and you have a mind virus. And that is a big fat lie, Tucker. Deep down, I hope you know that. If you don't, then you need to get saved.
I have to say, and I think you already know this, there's no one that gets my blood boiling more than you. You always say things.
Well, I didn't try the. I didn't.
You always you get me so riled up. Like y'all don't realize how reserved I'm actually being right now. You
Well, and you
really
don't
don't know.
understand,
You really
but
don't
you
know.
don't understand me that I self-censor way more than you would ever know. I don't, there's a lot of things I want to say that I don't say because they would be too they would probably make your head explode.
Yeah.
So, and we don't want to see that on live YouTube.
This is what I got to say, folks, and then we're going to get right back into Doha and then questions and statements. This is what I got to say. Utilize critical thinking. Demand facts, demand evidence, use critical thinking, and guys, as Christians, use the Bible with these things. Because whether you're talking about some of the guys and gals that we're mentioning right now, certain individuals that are out there in the prophecy community that are saying the most outlandish things and turning sheep against shepherds. Last time I checked, it was Satan and fallen angels that desire to turn sheep against shepherds. And when you see someone turning sheep against shepherds, that is wolfish behavior. Just remember that. That is wolfish behavior. And where you find wolfish behavior, I think you're going to find a wolf. And the Christian church and the Christian community needs to wake up to these accusations, twisting of the Word of God. Most of the time, I don't even see the Word of God coming from any of them that say the things that they say. And critical thinking is out the door. Can a statement that person XYZ is making, will that statement hold up in a court of law under examination and cross-examination? And if the answer is categorically no, then you've got to throw it out the door, and do not be fooled by a pretty face or a nice smile or a personality that's magnetic that you feel attracted to. Guys, the Christian church has to wake up to these things. And yes, it gets me boiled inside because I watch the damage that these people are causing and the falsehoods that they are introducing and the deception that they are introducing to the body of Christ. Okay, so I just got that off my chest. So,
now you got me all riled up. No.
yeah, well, what everyone doesn't know is how we do this. John and I do this on our phone calls with one another. Our phone calls, our phone calls on our texts, and John will say, "Boy, you just got me all bothered." And
So let's go back to Doha for a minute, because
Doha.
there were a couple things that that need to be said. So I think we've said enough about Tucker.
We said enough.
And it's a massive propaganda operation. But then they did some other things. For example, they brought in the foreign minister of Turkey, Fidan, and he said, "Oh yeah, we want to disarm people." And he just came out today and said, "Yes, we're going to go in. We're sending our troops in. We're willing to do this to disarm Hamas." This is a bull-faced lie. So think of Qatar as the bank for the Muslim Brotherhood, and Turkey as the army for the Muslim Brotherhood in the world. They're all cut from the same cloth. There's a mistake that a lot of people make with Erdogan, that they say that he wants to reconstitute the Ottoman Empire. That's not true. He wants to establish a global Islamic caliphate. I think I made reference to you on a program previously about a poster for a pro-Palestinian protest that took place on January 1st, 2025 in Istanbul, led by the son of Erdogan. And there were three objects, well, there are a number of objects on the poster, but there were three that had language attached to them. One was Hagia Sophia. Hagia Sophia was the largest church ever built in the history of Christianity. And it was Orthodox church, and I don't want to go into they're not really good Christians because they're Orthodox thing. The Muslims think they're Christian. That's what's the operative way to look at it. But 5 years ago, in 2020, Erdogan turned that church into a mosque. So the poster said, yesterday, Hagia Sophia. What that poster meant was yesterday we took over the largest church ever built in Christianity, and we showed the Christians who were boss. This is what Muslims do, just like as you're going up north out of Jerusalem up towards Ramallah, it's not that far, it's only like 6 miles. There's a hilltop, and on the hilltop, there's an unfinished steel superstructure building, just the skeleton of a steel building. And it's very significant. It's similar to what Erdogan was saying about First Hagia Sophia. It was the palace, it was the summer palace that was being built by King Hussein of Jordan in 1967. The building of that palace was interrupted by by the Six-Day War in 1967. And to this day, 58 years later, it still sits unfinished. But what's significant about it is the location of it. And it's funny because even people in Israel don't really know this. The location that he was building his palace, it's a place called Gibeah. It's called Tel Al Ful, but it's Gibeah. Gibeah biblically was the tribal capital of the tribe of Benjamin. Who came from Benjamin? Who came from there? King Saul, the first king of Israel. And so what King Hussein was doing when he built that palace was to say, hey, I'm a Muslim. I'm building my palace on top of your first king's palace. That's how important I am, and we won. So understand that whole Islamic mentality went into that poster that I was talking about, First Hagia Sophia, and then January 1st, 2025, it said, today, Damascus. So Damascus, the fall of Damascus and the Assad regime was about 3 weeks old when that rally took place in Istanbul on January 1st earlier this year. And so there's a picture of a mosque in Damascus, and there's a lot more I could say about that. But then the other one was tomorrow Al-Aqsa. And it's very important when you look at imagery that Erdogan uses and the Iranians and everybody, they always use the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem on the Temple Mount. And it's there, it's built on top of where the temple is. People need to get rid of this notion that the temple was in the city of David. There is absolutely zero historical or archaeological evidence for that. It is a complete, listen, I hope the people that did it live well off the money they made making videos about it, but it's completely untrue. I've been down in the city of David a number of times. Ask the archaeologists down there, was the Temple Mount, was Solomon's temple built here? And they will look at you like, you may be the dumbest person I've ever had a conversation with, that you would even ask that question. It's really kind of funny to watch the reaction. So anyway, but they built the Dome of the Rock on top of the temple. Now, that is significant.
Yes, it is.
That is a declaration of Islamic supremacy.
Yes.
And I don't know when the panels, there are panels inside the Dome of the Rock, and I've actually was in there 30 years ago. And I've seen these with my own eyes. There are panels in there in Arabic that are quotes from the Quran, one of which says, God has no son. It's an abomination to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, that building that sits there. And so Erdogan in his poster said, we got the Christians, we got the Persian-based Shia, today, and tomorrow Al-Aqsa and the Jews. And I talk to people in Jerusalem that deal with Turks a lot. There's a pretty significant funding of Turkish groups there and things to reestablish their presence. And they'll tell you that a lot of the Turks that they deal with will, if they don't say it when they're there, they'll come back and say, listen, we just want you to know we're coming back to take what's ours. So Erdogan is very significant. So his foreign minister was there. And so the next thing I will say is Al-Jilani came. And Al-Jilani said that, it's a shame that there are terrorists in the world that kill innocent civilians. And what Al-Jilani did, who seems to get a lot of favor from the Trump administration. I do not understand this. The guy was a terrorist. He was a wanted terrorist. And now everybody says, well, he's going to help us make peace. I'm telling you, Kurt, when I see this with Al-Jilani al-Shara, the leader, the new president of Syria, it had the way my government reacts to this and pushes this guy out there, brings him to the Oval Office with the Turkish foreign minister, by the way. This has end time stuff written all over it.
Of course it does.
I mean, it's like blaring, this is the end times, this is the end times when you see this. So al-Shara said, killing innocent civilians is terrorism. So who did he say the terrorists in the world were? The United States and Israel, because we killed people in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, and Israel's killed people in Gaza. Israel and the U.S. are the terrorists, the big Satan, the little Satan. And he said, we took over Syria last year and we never killed an innocent civilian. Now, to him, by definition, you'll only be killed if you're not an innocent civilian. So he can say, in his warped mind, that we never killed an innocent civilian. But I heard an interview on I-24 a couple days ago. It was on I-24 News out of Israel. You can find it under their live tab a couple days ago. There was a lady who spoke, very intelligent lady. She's with the Mizgov Institute. Her name is Ruth Wasserman Land, Lande. And she said, I'm looking and analyzing the situation. And there's not really a Syria anymore. It's an extension of Turkey. Now, all of us who talk about Ezekiel 38 and all that stuff, there's a lot of focus on Russia. And I did a talk for Hope for Our Times in September in Texas at Rock Wall. And the title of my talk was Talking Turkey in Texas, because what's going on with Turkey is incredibly significant from a Bible prophecy standpoint. So I've been following Erdogan for years. I listened to a lot of his speeches, as painful as that is. The imagery that he uses a lot and pictures that people post of him on social media are him standing in front of a big crown with the Dome of the Rock in the background. And that imagery is used all the time. And it's also used by the Iranians. The Iranians have a I call it's a blow up model, scale model of the Dome of the Rock. I call it the Dome of the Rock bouncy house. And they have it in all these parades and everything. They have the Dome of the Rock bouncy house. And my hope is that maybe one of the days some AI system will say, hey, well, that must be a legitimate target, and they'll build it into the targeting of a Iranian missile, and they'll solve a lot of the problems that we have with that building.
Well, I do want to, just to make sure that everyone understands online, there's a difference between the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock Mosque. Both of them are up there. Both of them are up there on Temple Mount platform. All right. The Dome of the Rock is the most known. It's the one that's in all of the pictures. It's the one that that is there, as you see, kind of in the center of that platform there, with the big golden dome on it, and then the blue and the white. That's the Dome of the Rock. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is much smaller. And
if you look behind me, that's the Dome of the Rock, or that's the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Right there, exactly.
The Dome of the Rock, yeah.
It's kind of hard to see. It just kind of blends in there. But that's Al-Aqsa. So they're both separate. Last night, in fact, because we're teaching through Deuteronomy on Wednesday nights, and where we were at last night, one of the things that we had done is I had put up there a photo of the Dome of the Rock, and kind of like with the lid cracked open, then there's a picture next to that where you actually see the bedrock. This is the reason why it's called the Dome of the Rock. What is the rock? The rock is the natural bedrock, which you don't see that's all around there right now on Temple Mount, but you do see under that dome, the rock is the natural bedrock. And there, on one particular portion of that bedrock, you see that there is this cutout, and the cutout in that bedrock underneath the Dome of the Rock Mosque is the exact same dimensions of the Ark of the Covenant. And then there's a little bit of extra space that is right next to it, because that's where the book of the law, or the scroll of the law, was right beside it. The Ten Commandments were inside, the scroll of the law was beside it. And that was the place of the Holy of Holies of the Temple of Solomon and the Temple of Herod. And that is the same place that the next temple is going to be built as well, my friends. Absolutely
Well,
cool stuff.
I have in my hands a copy of the Temple Mount Guide.
Yeah.
It's called Haram El Sharif, a brief guide to Haram El Sharif. I don't know if that's showing up the right.
Yes,
I guess
it is.
it's backwards. Okay. Haram El Sharif. This was published by the Jordanian, well, he was the Muslim Waqf, the head of the Temple Mount area, appointed by General Allenby back in when the Ottoman Empire fell, and they had to put somebody in charge. So they put this Arab guy in charge. He wasn't Palestinian, by the way. He was from Egypt. And he published this publication, Haram Al Sharif. So the whole Temple Mount area was called Al Haram Al Sharif, which included the Dome of the Rock and the Al Aqsa Mosque. Now they call the whole thing Al Aqsa. That's how it's changed. But I can in fact, I'll turn to page 4, a Muslim publication from 1924. This is a reproduction of it. You can find the original at Christ Church in Jerusalem, there near the Jaffa Gate, the Tower of David. And it says here that its sanctity dates from the earliest, perhaps from prehistoric times. Its identity with the site of Solomon's temple is beyond dispute.
That's what the Grand Mufti said. Grand Mufti said that.
That's the Muslim Grand Mufti said that.
Right.
And we have Christians running around saying, oh, no, that's not where Solomon's temple was. Listen, stop it.
Well, what's happening, John, is that they are rewriting their own historical narratives. They are rewriting their own documents. This was the Grand Mufti. He was the Islamic authority back there at that time, 1920s. He was the Islamic authority, all right? And they acknowledged the temple was right there on Temple Mount. Now you've got Mahmoud Abbas of the PA, Palestinian Authority, saying, oh no, it was never there. and you got these people that believe it.
By the way, the Mufti had a cousin or nephew, I think it was a nephew, that he trained. That's why he got kicked out of the Holy Land. He went to Berlin to work with a guy named Adolf about a final solution for the Jews.
Yeah.
And he eventually came back. Well, he eventually he booted to Iraq. I'm pretty sure he had a relationship there with an uncle of a guy named Saddam Hussein, who he trained. This is my belief. But his nephew was a guy named Yasser Arafat.
Yes.
And so there's a very strong connection.
Here, folks.
By the way, Kurt, this is, and I know I'll take up way too much time, but I'm going to point to something here. So if you go here here's the Dome of the Rock. And if you go over here along the eastern wall, there's the eastern gate. It would be right about here. See there, you can see some colonnades there. Mm-hmm. So you go there to the eastern gate. And I took my tour group there. In fact, we were up there. There's like 20 people on the whole top of the Temple Mount. We had like the whole thing to ourselves. So I went over by the eastern gate and I said, there's a tarp there. Underneath the tarp, there are 8 log beams. Those beams came from the Al Aqsa Mosque. And over there, when something falls down, they use that material to rebuild. I shared this story a bunch of times. and forgive me if I'm repeating myself. In the 1920s, there was a earthquake, destroyed the roof of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, this thing here to the south, this building down here on the southern end of the Temple Mount. And they just took the beams and they stuck them over there by the Eastern Gate. About a dozen years ago, archaeologists were able to get samples from those beams and analyze them. They were found to be cedars from Lebanon. Now, that ought to trigger some things in your mind
Sure
from
should.
biblical things. And then they carbon dated them. 7 of the beams were carbon dated to 2,000 years ago, which was the time of Solomon's temple. There's an article in the 2013 Biblical Archaeology Review about this. And just ask Randall Price. He'll tell you, I think he'll probably confirm what I'm saying. One of the beams was dated 3,000 years ago, which is the time of the Solomon's temple.
Right. The ones that were 2,000 years ago were what was called Herod's
the second temple.
And then the one that's 3,000 years ago was the one that's Solomon's.
Right. And there they are laying under a tarp. You can walk right up by them. Are probably beams from the first and second temples. They're on the Temple Mount.
It's incredible. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it doesn't lie. It doesn't lie. Hey,
so if you're in a group, if you're in a group and you go up there, go over to the interior side of the Eastern Gate. It's like a giant room. They're trying to turn it into a mosque. But off to the side, as you face towards the Mount of Olives, off to the left, you'll see these tarps, and you'll see wood beams underneath the tarps. Those are probably beams from the first and second temples.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? By the way,
and it's not the city of David, by the way.
By the way, as you had brought up Turkey, speaking about the nation, you've got this whole Gazan force that is being headed up by Trump in the United States. And what is probably the most significant country involved in that Gazan force there to rebuild Gaza, protect, putting foreign forces or everything else, but from Turkey. Think about that.
It's called the ISF, the International Stabilization Force.
Right.
Let me make one quick comment about that. Turkey is all behind that thing.
Oh, totally.
It
Turkey's
would be
right
a disaster of biblical proportions to let Turkish troops go in there. And I also want to say, I was just listening to an interview with David Wormser, who's a great Middle East expert. He may live in Israel now. I don't know. He was in the Reagan administration and security things, and Bush. And he was saying that, so like Ruth Wasserman Land said 2 days ago on I-24 News, there's not really a Syria anymore. It's an extension of Turkey. And then David Wormser, I just heard him before I came down here to talk to you, was saying Turkey is now trying to destabilize Lebanon and to force Israel to go into Lebanon, and they'll come in and pick up the pieces and establish another beachhead there, because Turkey has designs on Israel. And this is just their first stepping stone to a global caliphate that they want to establish. And they have the second largest army in NATO. Number one, the United States. Number two, Turkey. And they are a leader in drone technology and drone fighter technology in the world.
They are a very formidable force. I think
right.
Probably most people really don't realize that. But yeah, very formidable. All right, well, let's get to some questions here. So we've got, how many do we have on here? 6. So let's try and get to these 6, and then if we can get through these, maybe we can take a couple more if we can. So Pookie Martina is asking regarding England, when Tommy Robinson was born there, was one mosque. Now there is 45 mosques. Can England rebound from this tyrannical Islamic takeover? I don't believe that. You know what? I don't believe that they can. I don't believe that they can rebound from that. Part of the reason why I say that is because of the timing of the proximity. In my very strong, educated guess, if you would, to the time of the tribulation. So you've got a time issue, and the proximity to what I believe is getting close to the tribulation is one of the reasons why. The other reasons why I don't believe so is because they don't want it to change. The governing authorities there in England don't want that situation to change. In fact, the name, let me get this right, Muhammad is the number one for all baby boys in England right now. That is number one most popular name. No, I don't see it changing at all for what we would call the good. It's going to continue to go downhill. And one of the ways that they conquer is by way of baby births, by babies, by having more children. And those within the Islamic communities outpace the birth rate of those that are in the Islamic community outpace the birth rate of those that are not in the Islamic community dramatically. And that is even aside from the immigration and illegal immigration coming into Great Britain and England. So no, I don't see that getting any better. What do you say?
So, Kurt, when I was in England 2018, we stayed in London 4 blocks from Marble Arch and Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park. The Marriott Hotel we stayed at in central London. I mean, the other side of Hyde Park is Buckingham Palace, okay? They had 50 channels available on the TV. 10 of them, this was in 2018, were Arabic language. And we have the same things happening here. And the question is, can England recover? And the question I would ask is, can America stop it with what's happening? It's pretty daunting. I will share one more thing. When I was in Israel, they had all these in these Arab villages, like southern Bethlehem across the Solomon Pool Valley from Efrat. They have all these new apartment buildings. They're all over. Go look at them at night, and what you will find. There's not a single light in any window of any of those apartment buildings. It's a complete psychological operation to make you think there are more Arabs there than they really are. It's true everywhere you go in Israel.
Wow.
It's an unbelievable psychological operation. And so, but we have problems here. I mean, I had some meetings with people down in Texas, and what's going on down in Texas, it's strategic. If they can make Texas fall, we have massive problems in the United States.
Right. No kidding. No kidding. All right. So question number 2, Antonio, do you think Tucker's lies are influenced by the love of money or the hatred of the Jews or both?
Look, he claims he's not getting money from Qatar. You hope he's getting paid to be this evil and stupid. But it may be that he's just doing it naturally. But he does hate the Jews. I had a meeting 2 years ago with Jonathan Tobin. I did a panel with him, and he told me, and he's confirmed this on his podcast on JNS Sense. He said Tucker's animosity towards Jews and Israel was a very open secret at Fox News before he was fired. He never talked about it. Certainly never talked about it positively. And now he'll run around saying, Ted Cruz and all these people, they're obsessed with Israel, but he talks about it more than everybody else. So I think he's a propaganda operation. I don't know if he's getting paid for it or not. I don't even know. I don't really care. He comes from a very wealthy family anyway.
Here's the thing. Tucker Carlson doesn't need the money. He's got plenty of money. He doesn't need the money. I don't think it has anything to do with money. But I will also say that, what I may or may not think really doesn't matter, because we got to get away from those things. And what is actually happening. Facts, figures, evidence. Regardless of what is going on or what may or may not be behind those things with Tucker, who knows? I believe that it is honestly as simple as saying this. He is deceived because he does not know the Word of God. That's really what it comes down to. He is deceived. We know that. He is deceived because he does not know the Word of God and the exposition of Scripture. And so, that's what I believe it is. And as a result of that deception, this is what's coming out of his mouth. Vindog Radio has a statement. Says the United States of America could possibly become anti-Israel if J.D. Vance or Gavin Newsom become president. Wake up, Christians, because the Roman right begins. The Roman right.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't understand what's going on with TPUSA, Turning Point USA, and they're bringing in people like Tucker and Megyn Kelly and others. I don't understand it. I don't like what I'm seeing. I'll just leave it at that. I don't think it's a good sign. It was one of the first times I talked after October 7th, and I said this. It may have been the next day. I said that the issue of Israel would be the most divisive issue in the evangelical church until Jesus returns. And I think, at least so far, I got that one right.
Well, there you go. There you go. You know what I keep on saying? First of all, any program out there, when Israel is the conversation on Bible prophecy programs, let me define this a little bit better. Bible prophecy programs that are not Jewish and Israel focused by way of how the program is run, okay? Like the Israel guys, well, you know what you're getting from that, or Olivier Melnick, or any of that. You know what you're getting there. But what I'm talking about is Bible prophecy programs like myself, yours, Pastor Tom's, any others that are out there, all right, that talk about a whole range of things in Bible prophecy. When they talk about Israel and they make a program about Israel, numbers tank. Who's the main people that are watching those programs? Christians. This is an indictment against the Christian church right here. Listen, it's an indictment against the Christian church. Because the reality is that there is a Jewish problem within the Christian church. What I mean by that is that the Christians don't want to hear about what is all over in the Word of God, from Old and New Testament. Let's not forget the patriarchs. Let's not forget the 12 tribes of Israel. Let's not forget the 12 apostles. Let's not forget the Messiah. Let's not forget, and we can go on and on. All right? But there is a problem within the Christian community because, I don't want to talk about that. And this is the reason why they don't have a healthy understanding. And listen now, John and folks, if Christians do not have a healthy understanding of Israel and the Jews, they will not have a proper and healthy understanding of the exposition of Scripture that deals with Bible prophecy and the end times. The two go hand in hand. You cannot properly understand the one without the other. They are inseparable threads of the same garment. And Christians need to understand this. Very, very important to understand. So, all right. Next question. And yeah, especially Gavin Newsom, especially Gavin. I sure hope that guy doesn't become president of the United States. That'll be a trip. So that'll be a trip for sure. Okay, so Antonio, question: do you know if DEI is active in Israel? And if so, could that be the reason for accepting the Palestinians and why they could be in error?
So there's a That's an interesting discussion that's taking place in Israel right now as to what happened on October 7th. And a lot of people have a lot of questions. Certainly, at a minimum, you could say it was they call it a failure of conception. They could not conceive of what Hamas was done. When someone is that evil, it's hard to think like them. Now we put people in government because they're supposed to protect us, and so there was a massive failure on October 7th. There's no doubt about that.
Obviously.
But um, I don't think it was. I think it was probably a couple of different factors. It was people that thought they could manage Hamas. That was one problem. And then there were people that may have looked the other way intentionally because it would help them get rid of Netanyahu. And I don't really care whether you support Netanyahu or not, but you should care about the use of lawfare to hamstring an elected leader of a country. Like they did with Trump, the same playbook has been used on Netanyahu for many years. His cases, and these criminal indictments against him, I've talked to some very smart lawyers, and they say they're complete, utter nonsense. But he's having to spend 3 days a week testifying on these cases. And they say these cases could go on for another 3 years. I'm a trial lawyer. I've never heard of anything like this. It's unbelievable. So I think that there were people within the government that might have done things or allowed things to happen to get back at Netanyahu. But certainly it was a mistake for everybody to think they could manage Hamas in any way.
Well, and the reason
just
why
need to be eradicated.
The reason why they were in that place where they made a severe mistake, I don't know if you want to call it underestimated, I suppose, Hamas and their intentions, and thinking that I'm not going to get into some of the details of all that right now, but to say this, Israel, the Israeli government, was in the place of ignorance and has been in a place of ignorance for a long time, because they are not looking to God. They are not looking to Messiah, to Yeshua, to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, predominantly. And because of that, and again, I can say that because as we're going through our study again in the book of Deuteronomy, in fact, last night we were talking about that in part as well. And so what happens is they are blinded to these things because they are, by and large, not looking to the Lord. They are a secular nation, by and large. And so they are compromised spiritually. And because they are compromised spiritually, well, they're not making some of the right decisions that they could have been making. And I mean, and it's a shame. It's a shame. So there's this guy out here, by the way, asking this next question. His name is Pete Garcia. Does that name sound familiar to you?
I had Pete on my prophecy roundtable last night.
There we go. Pete Garcia is asking, what is the complete unredacted list of all classified CIA deep state operations? Well, wait, before I go on, I can't fully answer that question right now. You're getting into territory that in my agreements with certain governmental officials, I can't speak as to what is the complete list of unredacted list of all classified CIA deep state operations, because I mean, what's coming out there about some of us, or many of us, Calvary Chapel pastors and hippies and everything. So, I don't know. This might not be safe for me to answer. But anyhow, currently influencing U.S. government policy, including the names of all involved in clandestine UAP programs. So, Pete, are you in reference to what is being said that even President Donald Trump was briefed on those UAPs as well. I'm kind of curious if that's what's bringing that out. But what do you have to say, John?
That's one thing I haven't spent a lot of time studying. I'm sure there's always a lot of weird things that you can't explain, whether it's a government operation or that did it, or it's a cover up by government or whatever. Certainly, I don't find that it's going to be faith shattering to me. My concern is that it might be for a lot of people when certain disclosures are made, and I don't know what they are. I'm sort of like, if if you're going to do it, just get it over with, so we can deal with it and quit this. It's like this big tease that's been going on for a very, very long time.
I
So
I do want to kind of get to the, as Pete is saying, clandestine UAP programs, and I do think he's in reference to David Grush, who said that again, this is according to David Grush, who has shown himself to be above board and extremely trustworthy in his connections. Classified connections with the U.S. government and in his statements before Congress. But again, he is making a statement that, according to what he is aware of, President Trump has been briefed on these things. I don't know if it's current administration or his first administration. I do find it rather fascinating, though, that President Trump started the Space Force, and that is something that is a little interesting to me. Of all things, he started the Space Force. Could it be that is a direct connection to a certain amount of intel that he received, if he truly received that? Perhaps. I don't know. We'll probably never really know those things. I do believe that a lot of this
well, we'll know maybe
information.
if he comes out and says he's building a golf resort on the moon, then we'll know that maybe there's something to it.
Maybe there's something to it. Right, right.
He seems to want to always do the big deal. So the answer is, I don't know. I've been hearing this thing ever since I was a kid. And like I said, if there's something there, just tell us about it and we'll deal with it, But it's been like a big tease for a very, very long time. That's my assessment.
Well,
So
I like what
put up or shut up.
Yeah, I like what L.A. Marzulli says. When we go up is when they come down, and I really do tend to agree with what he's saying there, and I do think that whatever of the secrets that are supposedly being kept right now, I think that some of that is going to come out after we go up, but it's always going to be twisted, it's going to be warped, and it's going to lead people in the wrong direction and to the wrong conclusions. Okay, next. Thank you, Pete. Mr. Vinny, my cousin Vinny. He said, oh, you're so nice. I love my brothers John and Kurt. Best banter ever. Man, I'm so glad that I'm getting some good feedback there from you after I paid you off to say that. So.
Oh, you know what? I missed my little prompt here to really get you riled up.
Oh,
so
no,
I need to do that before we go.
Okay, Asset Ministries question: is it possible that all these huge data centers worldwide will be tied into one gigantic data center that merges all the different laws and religions to establish a one world religion and government, thus creating the beast system? I can't say it would be to necessarily establish it, but as an important component of it, I do believe as an important component of it to help get that level of false information and deception out there. That's my opinion. John, what about you?
Yeah, I think that I think we're just sort of at the beginning. I don't know how far down the road we are, because I'm seeing a lot of videos that say, from AI insiders, like we have 2 years. In the next 2 years, that's gonna blow your mind. But then we also see that, the AI is kind of running up against a wall of, do they have enough electricity? Do they have enough land? Um, so I don't know how far down the road we're going to get. I think I mentioned last night on our technology roundtable that what I see sort of is a reversal of Babel, in that there was a confusion of the languages, but now everybody can understand everybody with transcription tools and even AirPods that'll translate languages in real time. And so I just think there's a real convergence of a lot of things. Yeah, and so I don't know how far, what's the saying? Babel wasn't finished when God intervened. So final Babylon won't be finished, I think, when God intervenes. It'll be the same kind of pattern. But how far will it get and what all the components it will be, I don't think we know yet. Or we're just not privy to that information.
And I'm not baffled by the issue of not having enough of energy to power how far they want to go with that, because Elon Musk, well, at least just that one that I know of, I'm sure there's probably other ones, but Elon Musk is working on that very thing right now as we speak, and coming up with some ideas there out in space, actually. To harness some of the energy there, solar energy and everything from the sun that is above our atmosphere, and to bring those things down here. So,
yeah, and the people building these big data centers are also building their own power plants.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think there's a big data center company locally that just bought 150 acres of land, and they're going to put in data centers. And part of the announcement was they're going to build their own natural gas power plant.
There are some technological hoops to go through, if you would, but they recognize that as an issue, and they're doing what they need to do through science and innovation to move in that direction. And I do believe that they will achieve what they're looking to achieve in that. So, all right, we've got Stephen Matthews. Turkey's attempt to get into Gaza and Lebanon to put pressure on his real potential to conquer Israel in the long run. How much of their strategic plan is focused on oil and gas reserves? I'm assuming what you're saying there is how much is Turkey's strategic plans to focus on oil and gas reserves. It may be quite a bit, but I think there's other things as well that are involved. It's not just about oil and gas, although oil and gas is certainly a major component of it. But there is great mineral wealth there within the Dead Sea, so that's another component of it. You've got, just by way of how geographically the landmass of Israel is situated there in that region, it's so strategically placed, if you would, that would put a country, for example, like Turkey, at a great strategic advantage as well, and financial advantage as well. For a whole host of reasons. But let's also remember that the number one reason why, it's always more, it's not that money and finance and all of those things, power, aren't important, because they are important within Islam, very important. But the number one thing that is motivating them is the God, small g, of this age, and his fallen angels that are along with him, in wanting Israel from the river to the sea wiped off the face of the map. Okay? They want geographical Israel gone. They want, as John Holler is saying, Turkey definitely wants renewal, if you would, of a caliphate, the Ottoman Empire 2.0, if you would. And they want all Jews dead. So this is spiritually motivated much more than militarily, financially, geographically, although that those all are components. John?
You know, Turkey's going about this in a very clever manner. When Erdogan came to power, there was a story that Netanyahu shared from the late 90s. He wanted to get there's a piece of archaeological history that's in a museum in Istanbul that I think relates to Hezekiah's tunnel down in the city of David. And he had gone to the head of Turkey in the late 90s saying, I want to get that thing back. And the head of president of Turkey at the time said, I can't do that. We have a pretty strong radical Islamist mayor of Istanbul. And if I did that, there would be a civil war here in Turkey. That guy's name was Erdogan that he was referring to. So now Erdogan's come to power. He's Muslim Brotherhood. And it took Erdogan 15 years to completely remake Turkish government and society in a Muslim Brotherhood manner. And he was very careful about biding his time. For example, Ataturk, when he set up the secular state of Turkey 100 years ago, was, we can't have, you can't require men to wear the fez. It's an Islamic headdress, hat, or whatever that Turkish men wear that are Muslim. And there were certain things. And then the military was always going to be secular. But Erdogan's remade the military. He's imprisoned lots and lots of, it's one of the highest incarceration rates in the world. Journalists, military people, former government people, they're all in prison. And so it took him a long time to kind of put in place his government in Turkey. He then went to Egypt to try to help the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt to sort of, instead of doing it in 15 years, to do it in less than a year. Now, it didn't work, but what you're seeing, everything that Turkey does is they're pushing out their sphere of influence. In fact, as I'm talking to you, I'm seeing my X feed, and in my X feed, there's a news conference with Fidan, the defense minister or the foreign minister of Turkey, and a guy named al-Shara, the president of Turkey, talking about how Turkey is providing a lot of help for building Syrian infrastructure and Syrian military, which only buttresses the point that Ruth Wasserman Land made a couple of days ago on I-24. It really isn't a Syria anymore. And pretty soon we're going to be saying it really isn't a Lebanon anymore. And so they're going at this systematically. And also make this point, Turkey's a crossroads for gas and oil pipelines. I mean, Azerbaijan, Russia, a lot of that transits across Turkey. And it's a very critical, maybe one of the world's most critical energy hubs. But Turkey also has a lot of water. And it would not surprise me to see Turkey moving in to take over Iraq. They're already providing some infrastructural military support for the government of Iraq, particularly with their common enemy, the Kurds, that kind of live across Turkey, Iraq, and Iran. So I would just say, watch this. And one of the ways they're doing this with Iraq is they're controlling the water. Water's a huge deal in the Middle East. Iran is drying up. It may not. I don't know what's going to happen. This is a biblical proportion stuff, but the flow of water through the Tigris and Euphrates River, which are dammed up by Turkey, they come from Turkey down through Syria and Iraq. This used to be called the Fertile Crescent. The water flows in the Tigris and Euphrates rivers are down 80% from what they were 50 years ago. That's a geopolitical weapon that Erdogan is exercising to bring Iraq into his orbit of influence. So I think it's very important that you watch that. So he's very careful. He's going about now. Erdogan's 2 days younger than I am. So he's starting to show his age. I think when you oppress people like that for your life, it sort of ages you very quickly. But in all over my social media in the last 2 weeks have been speeches, talks, public appearances by the son of Erdogan. So I would say watch that space right there, because there's some very important things going on there.
All right, so we've got Pookie asking, Kurt, do you have another roundtable planned in the near future or later? I don't have the exact date yet, but yes, I am planning more roundtables. I'm just needing to get through the end of this year, though. Yes, definitely planning some more roundtables. Got some pretty cool things that I believe that we're going to be doing with that, and I think everyone's going to really love it. By the way, before I forget, guys, encourage everyone to subscribe, like our channel, subscribe to it, and share it out there on social media, as well as with John's. His is going to be all in the description section of today's video as well. So make sure that you check out everything that John's doing. He puts out some great stuff there, obviously, and connect with that, and subscribe to his channel, share, all of that great stuff. We appreciate all of that.
I'll be on with Vinny next week.
Awesome. And by the way, I do want to share with everyone, thank you so much for partnering along with us as well. We do appreciate your prayer support, your encouragement support, and your financial support as well, because it takes money to do all of this. I wish it didn't, but it does. It takes money for these things, and we really do appreciate those that are praying for us, encouraging us, as well as those that have financially come alongside us to help us to be able to get the word out and do what we do. And you know, we truly love you guys. We appreciate you guys. And I just wanted to acknowledge that this afternoon as well. So I see I got a couple more questions on here. Hey, Beauty for Ashes. You know I love you. Stephen Matthews got another one out there as well. But we're going to have to cut it short. So if both of you, perhaps on the next program, just carry those over to the next program, and we'd be glad to do that, because we are running a little bit later than we usually are today, and so we just want to honor everyone's time. But please ask those questions again next time. Maybe put those questions first, and we'll be glad to get to those questions. So I do want to share this really quick from Revelation chapter 2, when you're talking about the compromising church, and then I'll give the last word to you, John. Revelation chapter 2, talking about the compromising church. And to the angel of the church of Pergamos, write, "These things says he who has the sharp two-edged sword. I know your works and where you dwell, where Satan's throne is. And you hold fast to my name and did not deny my faith, even in the days in which Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was killed among you where Satan dwells. But I have a few things against you, because you have there those who hold the doctrine of Balaam, and taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols, and to commit sexual immorality. Thus also you have those who hold to the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, which thing I hate. Repent, or else I will come quickly and will fight against them with the sword of my mouth. He who has an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I give some of the hidden manna to eat, and I will give him a white stone on which that stone a new name is written, which no one knows except him who receives it. Folks, listen, we're talking today about the devil in the details, and sometimes we find many times that the adversary wants to try to infiltrate the church. We talked about that a little earlier in the program, and to try and bring compromise and spiritual and doctrinal weakness into the church and into the body of Christ. And the word of the Lord for us today is to he who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The Lord is speaking, and folks, let's be wise. Let's be in his word. Let's not give ear to conspiracy theories and false statements that are being made out there. Let's stick to the truth, the facts, the evidence. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by him. John, do you have a closing word that you'd like to share with us this evening?
Yeah, just pay attention. I'd sort of reiterate what I've said today is pay attention to Turkey and Qatar. I'm just seeing a article from a Muslim scholar in Qatar. It says that the title of it, it's very interesting, all these people who have, everybody's got an eschatology. Everybody acts on their eschatology. He's a Muslim scholar, and the title of his article is, "Are we nearing the end?" He says, yes, we are. There won't be a single Jew left in the world by 2033. Now, this is significant. So, talking people with a lot of money funding this guy. So, I think we just really need to pay attention to what's actually really going on in front of our face. Maybe this is why Tucker loves guitar so much. So,
don't know, but what I do know is that he's on the wrong side of history here. And
yeah, I'm not saying they're going to be successful, but they certainly, this is their plan.
Right. All right, everyone. Well, hey, it's been a great program today. I appreciate all the questions and statements. We try our best to get to all of them. Sorry we could not get to every one of them here today, but we look forward to hearing them next time. God bless you guys. And John, thank you again for joining us on today's program.
Good to be with you. Thanks a lot, Kurt.
All right, take care.